All right, here we go. Recording in progress. My name is Lori Krajewski, and I would like to say thank you for joining us for coffee today. I am meeting today with, I don't even know what to say about this person. My friend, my sister from another mister, my partner in crime. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Damara is somebody I've been wanting to interview for months and months and months, and we finally got a date narrowed down, and here we are. Damara is a healer to the healers. She is all-knowing, all-seeing. She's got some really unique gifts and talents that she's been sharing with those who connect with her for a couple of years now. And I really want to share this right now today, because we just had a session a couple days ago and kind of blew my doors off. So this is really good timing to introduce Damara and her work. And also, I'm just kind of getting raw and real here with the session we had the other day. And I had contemplated naming this little coffee talk, The Art of Surrender, because it might not be what you think. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Damara and ask her to introduce herself a whole lot better than I did. Tell me a little bit about how do you describe your work to other people?
Sure.
And then maybe just share how we met.
Sure. Thank you, Lori. You and me, we talk about like, how do you describe what you do, Damara? And some of the gifts that I have are I see, hear, know, feel. So there's a lot inside of that. I started doing healing work about 25 years ago. I started working as a massage therapist and doing body work, and then it transformed in front of me, and I started seeing like different energy systems, and I started seeing the way that energy was flowing in the body, and then it just started getting bigger and more advanced and deeper. And I would say that I get to the root of whatever is happening. I won't say a problem, it's a learning. It's a learning. I think when we set ourselves up for problems or issues, we're already saying that we're already at the negative point instead of the positive point. So I like to work with people in a way that is gentle and loving. I myself have done a lot of different modalities. I've done a lot of different healings with other healers for myself. And what I've come to is that people need a soft place to fall. They need a place to surrender. They need a safe place where they can be, do whatever they need to do without judgment. So I think I hold a big space for non-judgment for people, and I lead with my heart. And sessions are always different. So that's why it's like, how do I describe what I do? Sometimes, guides come through for other people. I receive messages all the time. Sometimes there's a healing. Sometimes it's just an activation of somebody else's gifts. That's really the core of what I want to do, is for people to understand that they can heal themselves, and that I'm just the container and the guide, so that you feel like confident to kind of dive into that. So that to me is empowering. So I would say that a lot of my work is about finding your own power and not looking for other people to solve your life or even direct your life. You are the director of your life. So that's how I like to work with people. Yeah, and it just evolves, and I'm always open to however I can serve that person in the greatest capacity that I can. And you and I met because I had my own health challenges. Honest to God, I don't know how we even found each other, but we found each other, and I'm like, thank God I found her. I was struggling with my own health condition. I was working through Lyme disease, and it's very challenging. I went from being a fully functioning person to bedridden within, I don't know, a month. Couldn't get out of bed. My kids were rolling me out of bed. I couldn't do anything myself. The pain, I would scream, and it was not good. I mean, I'm not going to get deep into it. So what I did, I think the difference for me, because I hear lots of people who are struggling, and this is only about a year and a half, it'll be 2 years in June when that whole thing started, is that people get lost inside of that and they get years and years and years. Like I was in a group and like there's years of like 20 years. And what I focused on was what's going to help me.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about my symptoms. My kids don't even understand any of the symptoms. My husband, I'm like, do you know anything? He's like, no. I didn't dive deep into finding out who told me what was this and what was that. And that didn't work. And I was like, what's going to help me? What's going to support me? Because I'm not living like this. I was like, I'm not living like this. And so things just kept showing up for me that supported that I was willing to do whatever it took to get better, but I wasn't willing to talk about how bad it was. Mm-hmm. So I found you, and you introduced me to Clean Slate, and that changed. I was already doing some things, and I had my blood cleaned, and I had been working with a naturopath and doing some alternative things. But when I started taking Clean Slate, it was about the time when half my hair fell out. Like my hair was falling out in clumps, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on? And you know, and I was like, good thing I got a lot of hair, but I'm just telling you, it was falling out in clumps. And I would just look at it and I'd be like, that's okay, you know, that's okay, hair grows back, you know. And I was like, that's not going to take me down. And so I talked to you and you described Clean Slate. I started taking it, I started healing. I took some of the other products. I take Clean Slate every day to this day. I would recommend that to anybody. It's it's amazing. Like, and the real truth is I get nervous if I don't have it, because if it hasn't shipped yet, I'm like, is it coming? Is it coming? Is it coming? Because that's how effective it is for me. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like, and then, you know, there's some other things that you've shared with me. So you've been very instrumental in like having my health be vibrant. So like I completely, and every time I'm like, Lori, what should I be doing? What should we do? You're like, this Damara. And I'm like, you're just like you're like my go-to info girl. I'm like, what do I need, Lori? You're like, this is what you need. I'm like, I trust that. Thank you. So it's a beautiful situation that we have, like a beautiful friendship. Yeah.
And I'm equally as grateful. I mean, you know, I don't have to tell you this. It's never a one-way street. It's always a two-way street that we are integrally, is that a word?
Yes.
Integrally supportive of each other. You know what I'm trying to say. I don't even have to say the words. You already know what I'm trying to say. We speak the same language, non-language.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And I'm equally as grateful because I probably shared this with you too, is for many too many years, I just couldn't find the thing. I saw so many providers and I saw so many different healers and did so many different things to try to heal this body. And the mistake that I did make was that I did talk myself more into illness, because, you know, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Really puts out an energy. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm never going to get better. What's wrong with me? It actually did feed everything I didn't want it to feed. Yeah. And I am equally as grateful to have found not just Clean Slate, but Restore. And my other favorite is Immune Defense Shield. Oh my goodness. Because those really did help me finally start turning things around, not just in my physical body. For me, that's almost secondary, because of all of the other spiritual, mental, and emotional changes that I have experienced with taking Clean Slate. And I know that probably sounds a little strange to some people, but the minute that I took Clean Slate and I dropped it on my tongue, I went,
yeah,
what was that? And I assumed I was imagining things and whatever. And the next day when I did it again and it happened again, I was like, I did not imagine that 2 days in a row. Yeah. And I feel it in my entire energy field. And I'm not saying that every person who takes Clean Slate feels that. In fact, there's a lot of people who think Clean Slate is doing nothing. Well, it's not true. We don't feel our cells heal. So it might feel like nothing. Hallelujah for you that you're having such an easy detox. It is doing something. But within 3 days, lifelong anxiety was gone.
Wow.
I have not had a single panic attack since I started Clean Slate. And my panic attacks would be at night, in the middle of the night, just like, and it wasn't even like panic, it was like terror bombs dropped on me. And I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Those were holy guacamole. And I am very grateful to say that whatever is in this formula and whatever it did to my body immediately started working on my nervous system where I needed it most, right? Because that's what quantum medicine is going to do. It's going to go where you need it the most. Clearly, I needed nervous system support more than anything. And I'm sure that has to do with, you know, I've had a lot of trauma in my lifeline. There has been a lot of trauma. The first one started when I was 13 and it kind of never quit. And it's no surprise that I had PTSD. It's no surprise that I literally had trauma locked in my body, and I probably still do. You know, I'm not going to say that all of this work that I've done, I'm healed, save the Lord, but I am healed. I am healed for today.
It's never done. I mean,
it's never done, but I am healed for today. You know, I do sincerely feel that I am healed in this moment. And that's what I feed now, not what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, I'm never going to get better. How am I ever going to get better? I just need to find the right provider who will do some digging for me to help me get better and get better. I am better.
Yeah.
And I am healed. And trauma can really leave a mark, but it doesn't mean that it can't be healed. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of German New Healing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm just saying there's other options. There's more options in this world than, you know, you just got to open to those options. So you open to something different. And I really believe that you draw on what you put out there. And so you wanted to heal, sincerely heal, and people keep showing up. I was asking who can support me, who can support me. You showed up. Things show up when you put it out there like that. And you know, I don't know many people who've gone through this life without, you know, the bumps and the bruises and the scrapes and all the things that go along with that. And it really is vital to have your body supported, because we are a being inside of a body, and our being doesn't, like for me, when I take clean slate, cleans up my cells, but it's like it turns the lights on. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, the lights are on. And because I process a lot of energy, and because that's the realm I work in, it just is it's like a lift. It's like, oh, all of this, it's like the mud on the windshield can be wiped off, right? We've talked about this. And now I can see clearer. And it's like, oh, wow, there's another. And then when you feel better, the way you look at the world changes. It really does impact you. And beliefs is a big thing. I work with beliefs too. And I mean, that's what we were working with too. When we were having a session, we were talking about beliefs, right? Yes. And you were talking about, you know, and then you said, what about, let's talk about surrender. Yeah. And I was like, sure. That's how this whole thing came about at this time, was the art of surrender, right? Yeah. So what happened for you that you're like, and I was like, yeah, that is what it is. And I mean, I was just holding the space for you, but you were doing the surrendering.
Well, yeah, once you So what we should probably share is that we started talking about surrender, and I think you asked me if I have ever surrendered, and I said, oh yeah, I've done that a couple of times, and I proceeded to explain to you a couple of times when I've surrendered, and you very lovingly and very gently said, sweetie, that's not surrender. And I mean, it was perfect, because I was like, what do you mean that's not surrender? I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I don't even know what surrender is. And it was
hilarious. Your brain go, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell everybody what you were saying to God and that you thought was surrender, because I think it's important. Those words are important, because I think the way people view surrender is oftentimes the way you were viewing it. So like, what would you say, and what was the energy you were bringing?
Yeah. So the one time that stands out the most is when we understood that the whole world was kind of facing some kind of illness, and it was horrible, right? And I knew my body at that time, and I knew my body was not going to survive what they were telling us what was going on. And I was like, you know what, God, just, it's okay. Just take me now. It's really okay. I've had an interesting run. I know this is going to take me out, and I just don't want something heinous for my family. Just take me now. I'm done. Tapping out. So I laid down on the couch, and I was like, you know what, just, it's okay. Just take me. And when I woke up and I was still in a body, I was like, okay, I'm not sure why I'm still here. So show me how I have to heal this body. Help me heal this body. Show me what I need to do. God, show me the people I need to reach. Show me whatever it is I got to do to heal this body so I can serve you while I'm here. Show me. And that's surrender with a whole lot of rules and conditions and dictation. I'm literally dictating to God what he needs to do for me.
Yeah. that was the big that was the big
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. Well, it was like that, show me, so give me proof before I'm going to believe. And that's not faith, and that's not surrender. Like,
no,
right?
I didn't just say, you know what, God, my life is in your hands. If you're going to heal me upright. If this is going to be my walk, then this is going to be my walk. I didn't leave it at that. I left it at, if I'm going to do your work here, you need to heal me. We can't do if then with God. We either turn our life over or we don't. And I didn't even know that that's what I did. A couple of times.
Okay, until we don't know until we know.
No.
But like, how many people are like sitting there thinking, like, I've told God I'm here to serve. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And it's like, are you doing it? Or do you need some sort of, like, if it goes your way, then it's good.
Right.
That's not real surrender. Surrender is, I'm going to trust that I'm going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, doing what I need to do, being who I need to be. And I'm going to trust that you're going to bring into my life whatever serves the highest good. And
Beautiful.
There's no conditions and there's no rules on that. And that's a space of true surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say I've been in deep surrender. I've also not been in deep surrender. Like when I want to control and manage and have things go the way I want, I'm not in surrender. I'm like in managing. And it's like, it doesn't mean you don't show up and do the stuff that needs to be done. It just means you're not like trying to like direct it exactly the way you want it. It's like, it's confusing because there's this place where like, because I resonate with God, I resonate with universe, I resonate with other names, Buddha, for me, there's something in all of it. And it's it's the sacred energy, it's the spirit, it's the unseen, right? And how that shows up for each one of us. I feel like I'm getting some the energy that I feel around that is the rules have been applied to that as well. Like if you believe in multi-dimensionality or you love crystals, you can't be Christian. I guess this is taking a whole different route right now because this is also about surrender. But there's rules again. And for me, there's like, you don't get to give me rules about who I love, where the truth, where the faith comes from. I feel like, like I grew up a certain way eating a certain food, but it doesn't mean I don't, I love sushi. I didn't grow up like that. It's the same thing with religion or beliefs or faith or trust or love or any of that. Like why can't we take what's good, what works, what resonates from all aspects and integrate that into our life? And then there's this level of acceptance that you don't have to be right, I don't have to be wrong. You get to choose, which I'm a huge advocate of choosing what you want. and then show up. And then surrender is like, I have faith that what happens here, I'm going to keep doing the good work, and I'm going to be shown what the next step is, and the next step, and the next step. So I
And I
don't
think
think that
that's
looks the
perfect.
same for everybody.
Well, and if we talk about that for a minute and we really
Sure.
take that apart, when we're in God's world, there's no time, right? There's no rules, there's no judgment, there's no, I mean, there's so much social conditioning and there's so many rules here
Yeah.
that when we're in God's world, it's just love.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have definitions of how we love. And it doesn't, that's it. That's
It
really
is.
there's just love.
Yep.
There's no condemnation. There's nobody telling you that that didn't come out of the Bible, so it's wrong. That's not how it operates in God's world.
That's how humans operate. That's how we
Right.
interpret. That's how we take what is sacred and make it something different. And
Yeah.
that's the human experience. So not to say, oh, there's no fingers shaking, or you're not doing stuff wrong because, you might not be in surrender. This is a process.
Right.
How about some grace and love? How about
Yeah,
some
exactly.
understanding for ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to be here in a human body in this world, especially right now. I mean, this world is
Challenging.
not necessarily an easy place all the time. And especially anybody who spends a minute on social media, it is not an easy place. I think we have gone a little too far away from love and grace and acceptance, and just
I think we're shifting that. I think
yeah.
we're shifting it. I do. I like even in the way that your son went the other day, the way that transpired was a shift. We laughed,
Yeah.
cried, joked. We went through
Yeah.
some serious stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was deep, and there was no negating the impact that it had on your life. But we recognized that the lesson was a lesson, and until you could see with deeper eyes or clearer, I mean, that's what you saw. It's kind of like, what the, it's like, what? And like, that's the beauty of it. And what if we could stop saying we all got to go through the dark night of the soul? And we were like, I recognize that there's some things that are maybe not congruent with who I want to be in this world, how I want my life to be. And we have a level of compassion for each other that allows it's not this thing about I get to dump and complain and, oh my God, I've had all these traumas and hey, not negating that for sure. Some of us had some real deep shit, me included.
Yeah.
But I think it's what we do with what we're given.
And I also think it's important to look at that pile of shit and understand why it is occurring, but don't get lost in the feelings, don't get lost in the emotion, don't relive the trauma, don't get lost in the trauma. Just look at it from the outside. Like you said, it's an opportunity to learn why it's showing up. So just use it as that, an opportunity to learn why it's showing up. It doesn't mean we got to feel the emotions all over again. It certainly doesn't mean we have to activate that trauma and be in that trauma again and get stuck in that trauma again, because I've made that mistake many times too.
There's been a whole movement around that.
Yes.
Stay inside your trauma, relive your trauma. No, I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I can see the lesson and the learning from the perspective and the level that I'm at, but how can I see it from a higher level? How can I see it from a place where it's a blessing? And I know that sounds really sort of like the mind goes, what? When people are experiencing what they're experiencing in trauma, it feels like, how are you even saying that? It's because it's back to what you do with what you're given, including how you perceive that, when we talk about clean slate, it actually clears you enough to see a different perspective.
It really does.
That's what happens. You get this and it's like, oh, for a minute I got outside of what I knew, And I got a glimpse, and then you got another glimpse, and then you got another glimpse. And then pretty soon your life has shifted because of the glimpses. Instead of like, I got to dive into this and I got to solve this and I got to work so hard to get through this. And oh my God, it's like, I don't know how anybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Like for a lifetime.
Yeah.
What
I
if
mean,
somebody
it's kind of
told
a
you you
killer.
didn't have to?
Right. And especially when you didn't have to. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't even want to heal anymore because this blows. It was very, very hard because I was doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
You were just doing what you knew. You're doing what you knew.
Well, you know, there was a time when I was doing breath work and inner child work, and a dear, dear friend of mine said, you know, that is fantastic. That's great. I'm glad that you're finally opening the door to starting to heal, but don't get lost in the child. Don't live as the child. And how long are you going to pacify that inner child before you move beyond the wounds of the child?
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I thought, yeah, sign me up for that. Because everything I mean, seriously, everything that I was feeling, it was so painful. I was like, why does anybody do this? This blows. And there's no bottom of that barrel, by the way. Just like there's no top to what we can receive, and there's no limit to the possibilities and the greatness. There's no bottom of that barrel either. You think you're going to peel away all the layers of that onion, and it's simply not true. I'm sorry, but you can get further and further and further down, or you can go further and further up. Which one do you want to do?
Well, and
endless.
it's not negating, like people think, oh, well, you're just like, they call it, what I can't remember what they call it, like spiritual bypass, because they just think they're enlightened. And I'm like, you know, your belief matters. Like, so how many years is enough for you to qualify them as ready to let go of that childhood trauma? How you know, it might rear its head. Like, this is the truth. The things that have happened to us are a part of us. They are who we are. They shape us. Trying to get rid of them is not going to happen. So recognizing that, okay, that there are certain situations that trigger me. Okay, I am triggered because I feel less than aligned. I feel less than love. I feel angry. Like and you get to feel those emotions because you're here for the experience. But to expect that that is never going to come back in the entirety of your life is setting yourself up for failure. And it's like, don't we want to set ourselves up for success? And guess what? Let's say I'm wrong and that, you know, we're so-called spiritual bypassing. Well, I spent 10 years having fun and feeling joy and, you know, experiencing that stuff. And then it came back up again. Oh, well, I guess I'll deal with it. But in the meantime, I didn't spend 10 years berating that I couldn't do anything because my inner child wasn't healed.
Yeah.
I mean, what a waste of time. What a waste of life. And I mean, the real truth is we know when we need something. We know when we need to seek help. We absolutely know.
Yeah.
And when you just put it out there that I require some sort of support here, that person shows up. You showed up for me.
Yeah. Yep. And you showed up for me right back because, you know, I had the opportunity to experience firsthand a full-on session and exactly what it is that you do. And I'm so grateful that we almost share a brain because it made things move along so much easier and so much faster. And even though a lot of it was unpleasant, it was like I am so much more dedicated to my healing than my pain that I'm like, no, let's do it. And you're like, are you sure? Because this is going to be uncomfortable. I'm like, do it. Rip the Band-Aid. Let's do it. But I very much, I have to acknowledge that I probably would not have been able to do that alone because it's just so much more helpful when you have somebody else's perspective kind of asking you questions that make you go, oh, I didn't think of that. Or do you know what I mean? We can do so much by ourselves. And I'm a staunchly independent person and I never ask for help. But like you said, there are times when I know I just need help. And why not turn to the people who know how to do the things that you do a whole lot better than I do and just move through it already. You know, if I can't journal it out or if I can't just sit quiet for a little while and, you know, hey, God, dude, I need to talk. and work through it, I know I have to reach out, or it's just gonna linger and linger and linger, and like a
Those
bad headache that
patterns,
won't
right?
go away.
Those patterns. So what I know about having to, seek some support is if things keep showing up the same way in your life and you keep thinking you're handling it, but it keeps showing up, and like, I mean, there's intensities, right? But if it's like, oh my, this again, or I'm reacting this again, you need a different
Yep.
perspective.
Yep.
You need somebody to, and that is also surrender.
Yes.
To say I'm an independent person, and yet I live in this world with a whole bunch of people, and like all of us have our gifts and our strengths and our beauty to share, and yet I'm going to sit over here in the corner and I'm going to figure this out by myself, and I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to get up against the wall, and then I'd be like, oh shit, now I need somebody. And it's like,
Yep.
you actually don't have to go up against the wall.
Yep.
You could just say, you know what, this pattern, it keeps coming up for me. I would like to break this pattern. The way it's showing up in my life is less than joyous. It's not even loving at all. So now I'm going to open up, like, what's my next? Where can I receive support? So I think that we're sort of, especially women, we're sort of programmed to do everything.
Yeah.
And I am also one of those women who thinks that lone wolfing in, and I'm independent, I'm doing this, and I got to handle that and all that. And I'm like, yeah, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. Like, how about we just figure out, what are you good at? Awesome, you do that. What are you good at? Awesome, you do that. And then let's figure out how we can like make this happen for everybody, and that's where the living happens. You're not negating that you have stuff to deal with, but what you're saying is, I'm willing to look beyond that and live a life that I want to live, instead of one that's dictated to me by some past trauma or some programming or some environmental stuff that decided for me. Like, most people don't even say, like, oh, I was supposed to get the house, I was supposed to have the kids, I was supposed to have that. Did you even ask yourself what you wanted? Did you even know you could ask that question?
Yeah. Right.
Most of us don't even know we could ask a different question.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
And that's honestly, that's reason number one why I wanted to do this quote unquote podcast, was because I wanted to, and I still want to, I want to build, in a sense, a network of people who do all of the things that I cannot do, and people who have all of these beautiful gifts and talents and offerings to help other people be less, be more joyful and work through those patterns and just heal their lives. And, we are not meant to go it alone. No, we're not meant to, turn our healing over to somebody else, but we are meant to work with our brothers and sisters in this journey, and not just for support, but to be the support. Like I said before, it is never a one-way street. We are always receiving when we give. And if one of the ways that I can give is some resources for people to be, you know what, Damara was so cool, I got to work with her. Great. Then my podcast has purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. You're all about that. You are all about, how can we connect? How can we improve? I mean, I love that about you. And you give information and you give of yourself all of the time. And that's what I'm up to too. Like, we're building connections, community, network. Like, we're creating the kind of lives, the kind of people, the kind of way we want to be here. And I think that's powerful, and that comes with permission to do something different.
Right. Permission to do something different. I love that.
Yeah.
If only, if only I had heard that. Like you said, if only I had heard that when I was 20 and had asked myself some really important questions. I didn't even know who I was at 20. I think a lot of people feel that way, but there's times I see 14-year-olds who have their stuff figured out. They are so going to be a doctor, and you can see it, and they have it dialed in. I mean, it took me almost all of my adult life to dial in what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing with this life. And, circling back to what you said a little while ago, how we can embrace these things as gifts. as much as I hate to say it, illness has been my biggest gift. It really has been. And it took me decades to be able to say that, because one of the first person, what was she? She was a reflexologist. She was one of the first people that I saw to try to quote unquote heal myself. And she said, well, what are you getting from your illness? And I just looked at her like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Debt, stress, losing all my friends and potentially losing my family. She's like, no. What I mean is, how is your illness benefiting you? And I never saw her again. It's like, you're nuts. And I never saw her again.
Right. She challenged you on your payoff.
Well, I thought she was Looney Tunes.
But she was like so advanced.
Right? I was like,
yeah.
What planet are you on, lady? I'm still friends with her to this day, by the way. Because
I started out with the reflexologist too. Like really, when I started my own self-healing, it was kind of like reflexology was the only thing really out there. And a little bit of Reiki, you know, and it was like, okay, so, you know, the reflexology was an easy thing because it was like they touched you, you know, there was a whole map of all the organs, so your mind could be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing this work. And it was like a small step into,
it's the doorway.
you know, like 25, 30 years ago, it really was. And it really did work though.
Yeah, it was 30 years ago. Yeah. And you know, I did have a few sessions and I was like, yeah, I don't think it's doing a darn thing for me, but you know, whatever. So, you know, I did other things. I actually went on to learn something. Where are you? Saskatchewan?
Yeah, Canada.
Okay. So this guy was from Quebec. He was a chiropractor.
Yeah.
What was that?
That's east, I'm west.
East, okay. So this guy was a chiropractor and he developed his own, I don't even know. It was almost like a mix between Reiki and chiropractic. So you still worked on the spine and you still sort of manipulated the vertebrae, but you did it with energy. Like, this is so cool. So like if a vertebrae is kind of misaligned this way, you push it that way and complete the communication and let it go the way that it wants to go. And it slides right back where it belongs. It was mind blowing. And he was the first person that I ever heard talk about ego and spirit and our ego self and our spirit self. And
just seems like eons.
It really does.
Wow.
I mean, seriously, I met him in 1997.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But hallelujah.
I was doing the same kind of stuff. Like I was also working with somebody who would just move things physically. You know, my hip was out of place, move my hip back into place just by breathing and focusing. And I would just breathe and stuff. And I was like, okay, there's something big up here. This is some real stuff because my hip's back in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was by listening to the energy.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it really was. He called it biopratique. He was French. So and he's probably still teaching to this day, but I don't think he comes into the US anymore. But it was just fascinating because it was a whole different world to me that I never would have found if I wasn't ill. If I hadn't gotten, if I hadn't gotten sick and never got better, whatever happened at that time, I would never have known that there was a holistic world, that there was natural medicine, that there even was Eastern medicine. I was raised very, allopathic. You go to the doctor, you get your pills, and you don't get better.
I know. I do know. I wonder often, like for instance, in the healing work that I do, I'm always asking myself, do we need to go through the pain? How, do we need to learn through illness? Do we need, what choices are we making that have us? So I'm interested in, I'm not negating pain or anything that lots of people say, nobody ever makes real change until they're like up against it. And sure, that can be true. But what if you didn't have to be up against it? What if you just recognize, say something's out of alignment? Do I need to go through 20 years of Lyme disease to figure it out, or do I want to figure this out? Like, or am I committed to something different or more, or, you know, so I'm interested in having that conversation where people are breaking out of, you know, I see things as a blessing because they've taught me and now I've expanded and now I'm more of who I am. I'm also interested in is can I evolve or level up or expand without having to go through some of these very traumatic ways of being in this world. So, and if I can ask a different question, then what do those questions look like?
So I have this theory.
Okay.
I should trademark my theory because
maybe you shouldn't share it. Do you have a trademark? No.
I know, right? I shouldn't share it until I trademark it. Just so everybody's watching, this is mine. You can't use it, which is ridiculous. But I have this theory that when we're small and we don't have language yet, we express, right? We throw tantrums, we cry, we throw things. Our parents know when we're upset because we demonstrate our upset. And when we start learning language, we start learning to shut off that demonstration. We start learning to shut off our emotion and our only way of communicating, really. And over the course of time, you know, by the time we're about 10, we don't get to tantrum anymore. We don't get to demonstrate what we're feeling anymore. And my theory is that while language is beautiful, it also like shuts down a part of who we are. And if we had stayed in tune just a little bit more, would we have noticed those subtle cues that we might have picked up on, that there was something misaligned and there was something to take a look at? Like you're saying, why do we have to get shoved in a corner, you know, backed into a corner before we do something that helps us heal or propels us forward or enhances our life or betters our world? It usually isn't until somebody has a heart attack, somebody has a car accident, somebody breaks an ankle, somebody smashes their wrist. Do you know what I mean? It usually isn't until life wakes us up loudly that a lot of, and I see it all the time, a lot of us still don't see that that's, you know, a cold bucket of water in the face.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wonder if we can, and I think it's happening, but I wonder if we can kind of go back to basics and go back to nature and, you know, people talk about the paleo diet. Well, what about the paleo diet for the mind and the spirit and the emotions? And go back to the paleo time when we were so in tune that we knew immediately something needed to be addressed. You know what I mean? And how can we bridge that gap?
Well, I think it's challenging because of the internet, because of our phones. It's challenging because we're in a completely different time than, let's say, that where we allowed more of nature and more of just the natural things to happen and to take their course. It's more challenging than ever, but I think people are starting to realize that they have to get back to nature. And I think it's always going to sort of come down to, well, maybe not always, because that's a big word, but how you respond to what you're given.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying life's going to be like, oh, we're all going to sit around a campfire and say, I'm going to kiss you and you're going to love me and all of that. Great. I mean, there's moments of that. And yet the world is an experience. There's experiences out there and they're not always going to be what you want them to be or what you like. But what are you going to do with what you're given? I think that's the key part. And if you recognize that you're in technology and you need to be in nature, and perhaps you need to stop reacting with your words and maybe tune into more of what's happening. Like what you're talking about is frequency. You know, you're talking about, we should go back to telekinesis where we don't right? We don't have to talk. We, you know, like we can just, and I mean, I have that in my life. I have that with some people in my life where we don't speak and we just know. So there is that. I think that there just isn't, or hasn't been, as big an emphasis on
I agree.
those gifts. Like
Yeah.
those, we're talking about people's gifts and stuff. And part of the work that I do is to help people cultivate and remember their gifts and truly tune into their power. And I think because everything's been about doing, having,
Yeah.
we've let go of the being.
Yeah.
And so how can you have what you want when you don't even know who you are, when you don't even know who you be?
Well,
Right. So you're getting big.
absolutely.
You might think, oh, I got this, and I'm never happy. And it's like, is it really what you wanted, or is it just what you thought you should have because somebody else told you, or what influenced you on that? Like, and I'm not saying we can get caught in that, like you said, like how long are you gonna hang out in the wounded child? Right. We can get caught in I gotta evolve, I gotta journal, I gotta do all that. Okay, but what are you doing? Are you living?
Right.
Like, sure, there's a certain amount of perspective needed, but then like get off your ass and get out there and do something for you, for humanity, for love, for life, right? And it's like I, too much analysis paralysis, and I'm not going to do it anyway because I don't have it all perfect and I don't have it figured out. Like you and I are just like, let's talk. And I was like, sure, let's talk. And I mean, here we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Trust whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Who knows? We both, preface it with, don't swear too much. So we've done really good, I think.
Yeah.
So, like more spontaneity and stop being perfect. And like, I know that's been one for me. It's just like, just go and share and be with people and just do what you do. And like, stop making everything so freaking serious, and, gives permission.
Do you know that, once again, we have that in common? My husband and I almost didn't make it at a certain point in our marriage. And one of his biggest complaints was that I was too serious, and I didn't do anything anymore, because I had actually grown pretty darn sick, and I was very wrapped up in the illness, not the wellness, in the illness. And I completely lost my sense of humor. I lost myself. And it almost destroyed my marriage. It almost destroyed our family. And I can't say if somebody would have tapped me on the shoulder and said, if you can't change your circumstance, can you change how you look at it? If I would have had a different outcome, I don't know. But I really do love that question. If you can't change the situation, how can you change how you're reacting to it? And to me, when I hear that, I'm just like,
yeah,
it's like a relief, because you're acknowledging, I don't like this. There's this thing that's going on, and how can I fix it? And a lot of times we just can't, but we can fix how we're approaching it and how we're reacting to it, or just stop reacting to it. And
it's a
yeah,
choice.
sometimes it is choices.
Right? It's a acknowledgement that I'm responsible for how I show up in this world. I'm responsible for how I react to any situation given to me. And can I own that enough and not point the finger at the other person, or somebody did this or did that to me? You can go ahead and do that, but you're not going to be happy, because you're looking out and you're pointing out. You're not actually looking in and saying, okay, how do I want to show up here? And that doesn't mean, oh, I want to show up as this, this, and this, and it's all lovely, and I want to be this, and tomorrow I'm it, and that's it. And it's like, no, you might be that for 1 second, but it was 1 second more than you were the next day, right? And it's like, we have all these rules about how we got to show up, when we got to show up. Oh, I'm not evolved enough. Oh, I'm so evolved. It's like, dear God, like, when are we going to be done with all the comparison and the judgments, and I got to be this and I got to be that? And it's like, just live. Like literally just live, be conscious, go back to the golden rule of treat people how you want to be treated. Like, if we could just get that, treat people how you want to be treated. Do you want to be treated like shit? I guess treat people like shit. You want to be treated with love? I guess treat them with love. So, you get to contribute. How do you want to contribute? Right. So that's how I mean, just keep it simple. We've complicated everything so much and made ourselves have to be this and that. And it's just like.
And we've even complicated healing. There's a summit for this and a webinar for that, and a 5-part series for this, and, download these.
It's too much.
It doesn't have to be that hard, but, finding a partner, finding some kind of healing partner that you can work through these things with is, in my opinion, And in my entire lifetime of experience, I can say it's crucial. You have to find some kind of healing partner who can guide you through the things that you can't see. And I think that we can't see them because they're right here.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
right there. And
Yeah.
you look so hard, but you can't see right there.
Yeah.
And
Well, you've tried so hard and you're like, I can't figure this out. And you've like come from every angle except for the one that's all back to it, which is surrender.
right. The art of surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. The art of surrender.
There it is.
Yeah, it is.
There it is. So I feel like that is a beautiful closing.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm going to ask, are you open to new clients? Are you
Yep.
open to people reaching out to you? Okay.
For sure.
All right. So I'm going to add any links that you're willing to share publicly with this video.
Sure.
But if anybody is watching this and they love Damara as much as I do, please reach out to her and see for yourself how what would I even say? How beautifully uncomfortable a healing session can be. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Healing can be uncomfortable at times, but it doesn't have to be the hell that I've been through a bazillion times. And I know I'm not alone in saying that. I know there's many people that have walked over some hot coals and got really burned. You know, this isn't about getting burned. This is about finding that love and that joy again.
And it's also not negating or making light of the fact that you've been through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the whole goal is to feel more love, to feel more joyous, to not be held in that energy that makes you feel like, you know, that there's not a lot of hope. And so when you laugh and you make light of and you simplify, it takes the seriousness out. You can see clear. I mean, it's physiologically proven, you know, when you're in a different state, you can see. You're no longer in fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually embodying the moment and you're tapping into another level of yourself. So so there is a level, a deep honoring for me of sacredness that I hold for people who are willing to be vulnerable with me. That I hold, like I set a prayer and intention every time I work with somebody, that they receive the highest and best for themselves, and that I just be a conduit there to give to them whatever it is that they need in this moment. I've been doing that since I was massaging, since I was in my early 20s. I'd ask every time before I walked in, please give this person whatever they needed. And that's true to this day. That's how this is. So although you and I are laughing and we're great friends and stuff, there is a measure of honor and reverence that I have for this work that I hope shines through, you know, that that's what I'm up to, right?
And I'm glad that you added that, because I don't mean to imply that we laugh our way through the whole session. What it did for me, though, was, you know, similar to how Clean Slate takes out the bad and immediately replaces it with the good. That's kind of how I saw that session. Was we did some excavating and dug into some places that needed to be healed, and immediately replaced that space with joy and love and laughter. And in my opinion, for me, that's exactly what I needed in that session. So that's
a great observation, you know. And then when you don't fill the grid in, once you clear the grid, if you don't fill it in, it fills itself in. So being very intentional about what that looks like for you, I think is a key point that sometimes is missed. So I'm like, that's gold there, right there. That's the gold. And like, you even had a challenge come up for you and you reacted completely different than you would have. So, and that happened in a matter of like 24 hours or something like that for you. So
yeah, I think our session was 2 days ago, and that was just today that I dug those photos out of the washer and I had zero reaction. And it probably would have destroyed me in the past. But it, you know, like you said, it's crucial that you ask that intent give this person whatever it is that they need. And I'll be the first to admit, I do need to return to the silly, joyous, happy person that I was at one point at certain times in my life. I am naturally a pretty silly person.
Yeah,
And even
I
I have
know.
forgotten that. And even I have forgotten that. It's like my barometer. If I've lost my sense of humor, I know I need to
Tap in.
yeah. Yep. Yeah. So with that, I thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. So all of the links that you will need to connect with us will be included with this video. And if you have a gift or a talent or an offering that you would like to share with others, I would love to interview you as well. So please get in contact with me. Please reach out to Damara, and please be well. Thank you, and bye for now.
Thank you, Lori.